Okay, let's get this personnel committee rolling here. Chair, can you take, not chair, but clerk, can you take attendance, please?
I will. Alderman Langdon. Here. Alderman Kruger. Here. Alderman Tom Grady.
Here.
Alderman Ted Grady.
Here.
Alderman Rapella.
Here.
Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Taylor. Here. Alderman Sevenick. Here. Mayor Merkes.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes. Do I have a, hold on?
Make the motion, or do you want me to make the motion?
No, I want you to make the motion.
Alrighty.
Council President.
All right. Thank you, Chair. At this time, I'll entertain and make the motion to approve the Personnel Committee minutes of 1/21/19.
Is there a second? Second by Alderman Kruger. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes passed from Personnel 1/21/19. We have one item on the agenda tonight, discussion action items. It is the tentative agreement between the City of Menasha and the Menasha Professional Policy, the Union, January 1, 2019 through December 31st, 2020. Police Chief Stika, can you enlighten us on this?
Certainly.
proposal?
Try to kind of go through what this covers a little bit, answer a couple of questions that I know some of you have had, and then certainly we'll answer anything else and clarify anything for you. So this is something that was created by the Union Bargaining Committee, as well as the City Attorney, the Administrative Service Director, myself, and Candy had also sat in on the negotiations. The agreement itself runs, as was stated, for this year and all the way through the end of next year, so it's a 2-year agreement. The wages as listed are a 2% wage increase on 4/7 of 2019, and then a 1% effective 10/6 of 2019, and then a 3% wage increase on 12/29 of 19. I know one of the questions that came up is why 12/29, why isn't it January 1st? And what we ended up doing is rounding it to the closest pay period. In this case, it went 3 days back instead of 11 days forward. We did have a rough estimate of that cost, and we figured it was about $750 by doing it a couple days early. Now, just to point a few things out with the wages, as indicated in the memo, we have 2.25% budgeted for this year, and by doing the wage split increase as listed in the memo, it works out to the 2.25% increase. 3% for next year, for 2020, a couple things go into play with that. One, as we talk about the health insurance increase, the union would go to a larger percentage of the health insurance increase, which in theory would eat up a portion of that, that raise. In addition, if you remember, 2020 is a 27 pay period year. Because of the way the contract is written, the union folks have they basically get paid monthly. So you take the monthly salary, you multiply by 12 months, and then you divide by how many pay periods. The rest of the city employees, because most of them are considered hourly employees next year, will be getting their full pay for the full 27 pay periods, and that's what we've been trying to budget as a city as a whole, not including this bargaining unit. We did bring this up to the union to see if they wanted to get their full pay for the 27 pay periods, but they've elected to take that larger piece of the pie, or that whole pie, and still divide it by 27. So they'll be getting a little bit less for each of the pay periods instead of getting the full amount. So that also sort of impacts as to what the financial impact would be for the city for next year, as opposed to the rest of the employees. The vest incentive, that is something that's been in existence since when I started. And when I started, I had to buy my own vest, and I was probably one of, I don't know, maybe half of our officers at that time wore it. Since that time, I think it's now mandatory to wear it unless you have a doctor's excuse not to, or in some assignments, it can be optional depending on what they're doing. But for patrol work day in, day out, unless they have a doctor's note, they have to wear it. So this is a benefit that's been being paid now for the last several years, which really the city's getting no benefit from. One of the directions that many municipalities are going to is, we understand there's a big push statewide for wellness initiatives. This was one way that we looked at in trying to incorporate that. This is kind of one of those investing now for hopefully reductions in the future, because we know if we're keeping our workforce healthy, you will see a reduction in health insurance claims and things like that as we go forward. Less on-the-job injuries as well. Then moving down to the health insurance portion, and we can certainly go back and answer any questions on all this as we go.
Can I just ask you a
Oh,
question
by all
on
means.
the
Yep.
incentive part, the $1,400?
Yep.
I think we had some dialogue, some emails back and forth. Now, the average salary per police officer is about 63,500,
Correct,
around there?
for this year, yep.
Okay, so I think everyone's eligible for this $1,400 incentive of those police officers?
That is correct.
So if they complete the course, do whatever they have to do, they're gonna get an additional $1,400, correct?
As in the proposal, that is
Okay,
correct. Yep.
correct, okay. So that amounts to about, if you take 1,400 of the 63.5, that's another 2.25% on top of the 3 that they would be getting. But the 2.25 is a one-time payout.
And so if you look at it that way, that would be different than the 1% that they are currently getting. So if you take the wages portion out of it, look at it in the terms of right now they get 1% for the vest incentive. So they're getting $650 versus getting the $1,400, which is slightly more, so probably an extra 1.25%.
Okay.
Based upon those numbers,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Now, the one thing that's a little bit different, though, is the way that the language is now written. Right now, all of the officers are eligible for the vest incentive. So they all get that 1% so long as they certify that they're wearing their vests, and they have to wear their vests, so they certify that they're wearing them. Going forward, though, if a person has not achieved full employment status, they are no longer eligible for anything with the vest at all. So there's certain officers, unfortunately, that I think right now would not be able to pass the physical fitness incentive the way that it is. And some might elect not to even try or to do it. So as far as the impact on the city, we don't know what that is because we haven't done the testing yet to know what it would be. But would it be more for those that are getting it? Yes, it certainly would be.
And that's not in the budget, that was never in any of the type budgeted numbers?
Correct. In sort of rolling the dice as to who could pass it, who would not, we think that the numbers may be able to come pretty close to what would have been budgeted for the vest incentive versus the physical fitness incentive.
Right, and plus the offset of them having to pay higher health insurance and stuff, so it could be covered in the budget that way, okay.
Then going to the health insurance premium, yes, we did budget for everyone to be at the 775. However, the premiums that the union would be paying is 8% for this year, and then they would elect to 10% for 2019. I'm sorry, 2020. Thanks, John. Getting late. Comp time that they can put on the books, that would increase from 50 hours that they're allowed to have on the books right now to 150 hours. That again is one that really has no impact on the city, because, and the reason why the union wanted this, we understand, is to kind of plan ahead if you think you're having a child or something, so you have that time if you're taking family leave. This allows people that might not have a lot of vacation time or sick time built up to be able to take that leave time. But the rules that we have for it is they can't carry over more than 50 hours in a year. So it's not like we're accumulating 150, 150, and 150, and a person retires and they have thousands of hours on the books. The most they can carry from year to year is 50 hours. And because they earn that time at one wage, they can't cash it out in the second year when they might be making something more. If they carry any of those 50 hours over to the subsequent year, they can only take it in off time. So to take a day off, that's how they would be able to use that time going forward. And that's the same system that we have in place now. The grievance arbitration process, we had a bunch of different days. It was 3 days for this portion, 5 days for this, 10 days for this. We just simplified it and added 10 days to the entire section. That's what we covered pretty much in the memo. If you notice, there are 2 other items that are on the tentative agreement, which was signed by the union's representative. One was a placeholder for a change to the K-9 language. K-9s currently, the officers get step 6 pay, and we've had some discussions with them, and we believe that one is being compensated, or they're being compensated much differently from one to the other. And we're trying to have a more equal system between the 2 of them. At the point of this agreement, we haven't been able to reach what that correct amount should be going forward. So that's why it says placeholder if agreement can be reached on K-9 language. So we're not looking for any sort of approval or anything for you folks on that because one doesn't exist. If something comes in place with that later, that would be a side letter to the contract, and we'd come back to the Personnel Committee and then council for any sort of approval. And then the other thing that's reflected in the agreement that was signed by the union is some language as far as the new fair share or dues deduction. And the city attorney has some questions and a couple concerns that she has before the city would be able to agree to that portion of the language. We have a meeting set for Friday with the union representatives to do that. Again, that language has no bearings financially or procedurally to the city. It's more just, obviously the city attorney is the expert in our legal language, so we want her to be comfortable with what would be in there for that. So with that, kind of went through things.
Assignments.
Which part I missed, Pam?
The assignments.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it was a cleanup portion. We had something with an assignment pay, so previously $200 annually would be paid to officers in a variety of different areas. We changed that now. And it was before for CRT evidence technicians and a couple others. We removed CRT and evidence technicians, and we just had it for tactical instructors now. It's gonna have a net neutral. The amount of people that are instructors were the same that were in the other ones, so it ends up working itself out. But that is a language change that was in there as well.
No,
Anything else?
okay, no. Thank you for your time on this contract. I know it went a little bit longer than you probably wanted to. City Attorney and Police Chief Steka, because it's really not going into effect until 4/7. So I'll entertain any questions. Alderman Taylor,
Will you entertain a motion?
you can do that too.
Okay, I'll make a motion to forward to the council tentative agreement between the city of Menasha and the Menasha Professional Policy Union, January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2020.
That should be police, right?
Yeah, it should be.
That's all right, I caught that too.
Do we have a second? Second by Alderman Langdon. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say, this year especially, with the department reaching the accreditation in the state of Wisconsin, I think it's a tribute to the chief in your department, putting that together. And, you know, I've been up here since, on and off since 1994, and used to get complaints about, as we do with all departments, and I can't think of a time in the last 5 years where I've got a complaint in the police department. And they deal with such unusual situations and stressful situations, and the accreditation shows that the professional ability of this department, and it certainly shows with the people of the community not complaining about the department like you said in the past, like we had. So I think it's well-deserved contract for them. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll take a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring this up because I was just curious today, and I called Officer Chief Steka on the physical fitness incentive. I don't know if any other alderman read it. I went over it, and I'm all for this. The
program?
Fitness program?
The
Yeah,
program.
yeah. So, but I did have a question, which, and he answered that they kind of have already a set standard, because I was going to put in, kind of suggest that, you know, as a recommendation, I guess, that on the physical fitness incentive, letter E, that an officer must meet minimum requirements for each of the 3 events, push-ups, sit-ups, and a 1.5 mile run in order to get that lump sum. And I said, I called Chief Stike, I said, hey, you know, I'm okay with this, what if, we could make it for the 1.5 mile run that, no officer can, stop and walk, but there's no time limit on when the officer finishes the 1.5 mile run. But Chief Stike told me that there's already things in place that they already have to meet, which I didn't know.
Right, just to expand upon that, we're not like pulling numbers out of thin air to say what the officers should have to do. So it's not like, hey, 5 sit-ups, you get your money. So what we ended up doing is we actually took, the state of Wisconsin has exit standards when an officer or candidate officer exits the recruit academy. So we figured that the standards that they should be able to do is just like if anyone exits the academy. They're not overly ambitious standards, so the exit ones are 30 sit-ups, 23 push-ups, and a 1.5 mile run in 16 minutes and 57 seconds. When the state actually had those criteria, they actually did the other side of it, the research to it, to say how the various portions of the testing that they do is applicable to a general police officer in the state of Wisconsin. One of the things that we're already talking about potentially trying to do is fine-tune this system a little bit further and try to see how we can change this testing going forward perhaps, and that would be something we'd come to you with, as far as things that might be applicable more specifically to Menasha. One of the examples that has been given in the past is climbing stairs. If you worked in Milwaukee, you might have to be able to climb 40 flights of stairs. Well, in Menasha, you don't have to. If you hit Winnet County, probably 2 flights of stairs. But for us, we know that we have a 7-story building. Officers should be able to go up 7 flights of stairs. So as we go forward, we might want to fine tune these instead of going with what the general state standards are and try to really emphasize what that would be. The run's another great example. 1.5 miles, might not have to do 1.5 miles, but we know, and from experience unfortunately, that we've had officers that have to run from the end of Broad Street all the way across the Trestle Trail. And we want to make sure that someone isn't going to pass out in the process of doing that. So maybe our standard shouldn't be 1.5 miles going forward, it might be the 3/4 of a mile to make sure someone could get it across. It really would tie the physical things that a person may have to do as a police officer in Menasha to those standards going forward. This is a good starting point. This one's already been vetted as to where the numbers are coming from, but going forward, we potentially might look at something different.
Thank you, Chief Steiger, appreciate that.
Any other questions? All right, I'll take a roll call vote.
Motion carried on roll call 9-0.
Well, with that, that's the next thing. Make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Tom Grady. All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned.